story. So Dr. Samuel Mudd was a Southern doctor, and he simply was a man in history that was in the wrong place at the wrong time. He would eventually treat Booth for an injury after he assassinates President Lincoln.
Was it a broken leg or something like that?
Yeah. So another one is Edmund Spangler. Is that our last one?
Yep.
Edmund Spangler. You know what he was? A drunkard stagehand at Ford's Theater.
So he was a drunk.
Yeah, he's a drunk. He was a drunk. He was a drunkard stagehand at Ford's Theater. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a sympathizer. He wasn't a friend. Certainly wasn't a doctor. He was simply a drunk who worked as a stagehand at Ford's Theater. He assisted Booth in his escape from Ford's Theater after the assassination, and we'll explain how later. So those are your co-conspirators. All of these people will eventually pay a price for this act against President Lincoln in different ways. But those were the co-conspirators of John Wilkes Booth. Any questions at all about those folks? All right. It was on March 17th of 1865, March 17th of 1865, where Booth and his conspirators were going to kidnap the president. They were going to initiate the plan to kidnap the president on March 17, 1865. The president was scheduled to attend a play performance. Ironically, not the one he was shot at, because he liked the plays. He was going to go to another play, which was located on the outskirts of Washington, D.C., and Booth's plan with his co-conspirators were to kidnap the president from that play, take him to Richmond, hold him in trading for Confederate prisoners of war. That was their plan. Okay? Lincoln was scheduled to attend a play on the outskirts of Washington, D.C. on March 17, 1865, and Booth and his co-conspirators planned to kidnap Lincoln at that point. Well, as sometimes happens with presidents, their plans change. And his plans change, and instead of going to the play like he had said he was going to, he ended up giving a speech at a local hotel instead. Just had a change in plans. A change in plans. Well, Booth was an emotional man, and because of the missed opportunity on March 17, 1865 to kidnap the president, Booth and his co-conspirators went from kidnapping him to assassinating him. That's where he just said, you know, let's go for the gold. Which will take us then to the assassination of President Lincoln. So we're just not going to get into the guts of it, but we're going to tell you how his day went, how that day went, what he did, what's going on with the president. So again, March 17th, they're going to try to kidnap him. They wait almost a month before they make their attempt to assassinate him. So on March, we're talking about the morning of the morning of April 14th, 1865. We're talking about the morning of April 14th, 1865. And what happened that morning? President Lincoln got up, he and his family sat down for breakfast. So on the morning of April 14th, 1865, Lincoln and his family sat down for breakfast. Now you don't have to write this down. I'll just give you some, no, right, we're down for, I'm just going to give you some extra here. You don't have to write down. He's very happy because most of his family is there with him. His son, Tad, who had been serving under General Grant during the Civil War and actually witnessed Grant's accepting Lee's surrender at Appomattox, had been home, and the president was kind of giddy that he had his son there. Very happy to have his son Tad. However, his wife was, you have to write this down yet. However, his wife was especially grieving the loss of their son Willie, who had died at age 11 of disease. And he was probably most like the president, personality-wise. And Mrs. Lincoln was really struggling, even the morning of April 14th, still on the loss of her 11-year-old son.
And what was it for?
Willie. What?
Yeah, like how
Oh, it had been a few months. So the president, it was kind of a bittersweet. He had his son home, but yet they were still struggling, right? But it was a good morning. Well, I'll start writing down. At 11 a.m. that morning, President Lincoln had a cabinet meeting. Remember, a meeting of his cabinet at 11 in the morning. Included in that meeting was General Ulysses S. Grant was at the meeting, and a fellow by the name of Frederick Seward, who's on your ID sheet. You need to know who this guy is, Frederick Seward, because he's going to come back. Okay? So among the cabinet members at this meeting with President Lincoln at 11 o'clock in the morning is General Ulysses S. Grant. He's at the meeting. And then Frederick Seward is at the meeting. Now, this is an interesting story. We talked one time in our lectures about William Seward. He ran for president and lost. Okay? Well, he became Lincoln's Secretary of State. William Seward did. Okay? Well, he had had a carriage accident. He had fallen out of his carriage and hurt himself pretty badly and was bedridden. So his son, Frederick Seward, was filling in for his father as Secretary of State until he got well. And it's crucial you know that because that's going to come back later. Okay? So, Lincoln's having a cabinet meeting. He's got General Grant there. And he also has a guy by the name of Frederick Seward. Well, Frederick Seward is serving as Secretary of State while his father, who is the regular Secretary of State, William Seward, is recovering from a carriage accident. You know what a carriage is? You know, you got the horses and the carriage, two-horse carriage. He wrecked it, to be quite frankly, over some rough road and fell out and hurt himself pretty badly. So he's at home, bed resting, from basically a car accident at the time. That's exactly right. And Lincoln does not want to go without his Secretary of State, so he likes Frederick Seward. He's got some political experience, and he has him fill in until his dad can be 100%. Okay? Well, it was shortly after that meeting that President and Mrs. Lincoln got together and decided, you know what, let's go to the theater tonight at Ford's Theater. Let's go see the performance at Ford's Theater. So after his cabinet meeting, he and his wife get together and they make the decision that they will attend the play at Ford's Theater that evening.
So how did they know you would be at that meeting?
We're going to get to that.
Okay, student.
No. These questions are awesome, but we're going to get to it. Well, Lincoln invited General Grant and his wife to accompany them to the play. But Grant was unable to accept because he and his wife already had plans. They were leaving town to spend time with their children. So Lincoln invited actually 14 people to go with him. General Grant and his wife and 12 others, because he has a personal box up there in Ford's Theater that would have fit these people. Okay? So he and his wife invite 14 people to the play performance, including General Grant and his wife. Unfortunately, General Grant and his wife can't attend because they have commitments that they were leaving town to visit their children. So, he's still waiting for word from the other 12. Well, at 3 o'clock that afternoon, Lincoln meets with Vice President Andrew Johnson. They visit for a period of time. And then at 4 o'clock, President Lincoln takes a carriage ride around the city with his wife. Okay? So, at 3 o'clock, Lincoln spends some time visiting with his Vice President alone. They have a personal meeting at 3 o'clock. And then at 4 o'clock, the President and Mrs. Lincoln take a carriage ride around the city, around Washington, D.C. And Mrs. Lincoln later said that her husband was, quote, giddy. What's giddy mean? Happy. She felt like the weight of the war that he had experienced over the last almost 5 years was starting to lift off his shoulders. He feel giddy, very happy, very upbeat. And she was excited because he had not been very giddy lately. He had been, pretty concerned. So she had stated later that when they took that carriage ride, he was real giddy. She felt the weight of the Civil War is finally starting to lift off his shoulders. Well, in the end, only 2 people of the 14 kept their invitation to join the President and Mrs. Lincoln at Ford's Theater. Only 2 people said, yeah, we'll go with you. Those 2 people were Major Henry Rathbone and his fiancée, Clara Harris. Both names you need to know on your ID sheet. So the only two of the 14 people that accepted the President and Mrs. Lincoln's invite to the theater that night were Major Henry Rathbone and his fiancée, Clara Harris. Now, just see a little side note on Rathbone, you have to write down. He was a survivor and a hero of the Battle of Antietam. So he was kind of a big shot militarily hero, and so that's why he got invited. So Major Henry Rathbone and his fiancée, Clara Harris, were the only ones that kept the invitation. Anybody know what the play was that evening?
Our American Cousin.
Our American Cousin. And it would star an actress by the name of Laura Keene. So the play that they were going to watch that night was entitled Our American Cousin. And the star in the play would be Laura Keene. She not only acted, she also produced the play. She wrote it. Okay? So Laura Keene was the big star they were going to go see. Now, we'll get back to questions that Colt asked. So, let's go back to 10:30 in the morning on the same day. John Wilkes Booth arrives at Ford's Theater. Okay, so we're backing up to 10:30 a.m. the same day, and John Wilkes Booth arrives at the Ford's Theater. Why would he go there? Because he's an actor, pretty famous actor. And he even gets his mail there. So the reason he went there at 10:30 in the morning was to get his mail. Well, while he's there, guess who he runs into? The manager of Ford's Theater, Henry Clay Ford. Runs into the manager. And the manager knows him, right? Because he's acted there. So he's going there at 10:30 to get his mail. He has it delivered there. He's household name at Ford's Theater. While he's there getting his mail, he runs into the theater manager, Henry Clay Ford. And guess, Colt, what Henry Clay Ford tells Booth. He told him that, hey, we're pretty excited tonight because guess what? President Lincoln and his wife are going to attend the play tonight. That's when Booth finds out, and that's when he decides tonight's the night. They've been planning this, but they didn't know when or how. Well, when he finds out the president's come to Ford's Theater, somewhere that he has full access to.
So this was just a sheer coincidence?
Yep, well, kind of. Yeah, they were waiting for it, but this was the time they picked. You're right. Does he have full access to Ford's Theater? Is anybody going to question him being there? He's going to have the best opportunity to get as close as he can to the president there than anywhere else.
He can go wherever he wants.
He can go wherever he wants. So, because Booth is well known as an actor at Ford's Theater, there would be the perfect place for him to get close enough to the president to assassinate him. So he's not going to be questioned about being there, is he? He can walk anywhere he wants, just like Colt said, nobody would question him. Okay? Well, at 12 noon, Booth goes to the local stable, and what does he do? What? He rents a fast ride. That's exactly right. He goes and rents the fastest horse he can find. Goes and rents it, which they did in the stable days. They'd take care of your horse, feed him, but they'd rent horses too. So he went to the stable at 12 noon and rented the fastest horse they had so he could prepare for his getaway and what he was going to do. Well, somebody did, but not him. Now, this is where I'm going to end today, where it gets interesting. At 2 p.m., he meets with Lewis Powell. Remember, the Confederate soldier trained in guerrilla tactics. And they're going to put together this assassination plot. Because Booth has the information he needs. Now, Booth and Powell get together and decide, we will not only assassinate President Lincoln, but we will assassinate Secretary of State William Seward, Vice President Andrew Johnson, and General Ulysses S. Grant. I'm not kidding you. A lot of people don't know that.
So William Seward.
I'll tell you again. So at approximately 2 p.m., John Wilkes Booth meets with Lewis Powell, and his assassination plot is not only going to include President Abraham Lincoln. Booth and Lewis target Secretary of State William Seward Vice President Andrew Johnson, and even General Ulysses S. Grant, because they think that Grant's going to be where? At the play. That's what they've heard, is Grant was invited to the play. Now, Booth and Lewis planned this, that all 4 assassinations, Lincoln, Seward, Johnson, Grant, are going to be executed at the very same time. Well, it'll turn out that Grant will be out of the equation, right? Because he's already out of town.
So really,
Who?
Seward.
Why?
This is better.
That doesn't mean they won't go to his house. Good point. This isn't going to happen all at the same time at Ford's Theater, because all these people aren't going to be there. He's got
He's
co-conspirators.
gonna have him go to the houses.
We'll tell you. Tomorrow, we'll tell you what happened.
Seems like you're pretty good about this too.
Yeah, this is, well, what I'm excited about is most kids think John Wilkes Booth shot President Lincoln, that was it. Okay, that isn't the case. This gets crazy. This gets really crazy.
We didn't play.
All right.